Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, June the 29th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And glad to welcome back Tom Wells. We do the Monday and Friday shows together, and I always look forward to them. So, Tom, how you doing today? Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I think we got a forest fire going on somewhere because all night long I'm smelling smoke and my whole condo seems to smell full of forest fire type smell. So I'm going to have to look on the news and see what's going on.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's one good time to look at. There aren't many times to look at the news, but that's a good time, I have to say. That's a smart one. Kind of par for the course, though, in your area, isn't it? I mean, it's not like these are unusual.
Not very unusual. There's about, I don't know, not every summer there's one that you can actually smell, but this could be coming all the way from Idaho or something because they blow all the way across the western states.
Yeah, prevailing winds. Yeah.
In the summer, it's not unusual that there's over 100 fires happening at once in the 5-state area, you know.
Right.
So,
well, then
that's exciting.
You may or may not want to take advantage of what Joel published. I mean, or if you do take advantage of it, you'll probably have to be a little cautious about it just because you don't want to breathe in a whole lot of smoke. But Joel published something really cool. I mean, of course, Joel does the Thursday morning show with me. And shortly after we did the show yesterday, about 4 hours afterward, he posted this thing on Facebook. And it's a picture of a prescription form from a Dr. Mike Hart in London, Ontario, in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if Dr. Mike Hart is a real doctor or not, but it doesn't matter because it's a really, really great prescription. The name on the prescription is Every Human Being. Mm-hmm. The date is June 28th, 2018, and the prescription says, exercise 30 to 60 minutes, 6 times a week, forever. I love it. That's great.
Forever. Yeah, right. I'm not doing it. No, I do some every day.
Well, I've been missing it because while I'm recovering, and I'm happy to report I am recovering from my knee
from your knee?
Yeah, but my knee is getting better. I actually did a walk down to the mailbox, which is, like 0.2 of a mile or something like that. But went down, went back, only minimal discomfort, so that's improvement. And I figure if I just keep staying the positive and keep believing, because it's been working so far. I mean, I'm definitely healing well ahead of schedule. That I should be able to get out there and start doing my 30 to 60 minutes a day every day because I really miss it. Oh, my body misses it so much. I really want to get back out there.
Yeah, it's really good to do it.
It is.
I try to do at least a walk every day, and then I do Tai Chi every day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's really nice. I'm like all the Chinese folks that you see out in the big square, 100,000 of them out there doing it together. That's so cool that they do that all over China.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
No, it's good for you. And I mean, we do your daily dose of happy here, of course, and there is nothing more effective, in my opinion. Now, there are going to be people who disagree with me, I'm sure. But in my opinion, there's nothing more effective in terms of raising your happiness level and keeping it at a high level than doing fun exercise. Not boring or dull or, oh, God, I can't handle this exercise, but something that you find that's enjoyable. I mean, I love walking. I like biking. When I do those things, I feel good. And doing the exercise on a regular basis for something that you feel good, it's a really nice way to turn things around, particularly if you have ever been or you are currently in a position like I originally was when I first started doing it, where I was pretty darn depressed and wondered how to get out of the depression. Well, the exercise played a major role in that for me. So that's why I'm such an advocate of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've had that experience too. That you just getting out of my place and going for a walk is huge some days when I've been in tunnel vision, trying to get a bunch of stuff done that's all cerebral and all takes, being at the computer and all that. And then just saying, okay, I'm shutting all this down and I'm going to go out for an hour and just look at trees and sit in meadows and sit around the pond and that kind of stuff. It feels so good,
Yeah, just as long as you're not breathing in the forest fire smoke. But other than that,
it's great. Right. No. Hopefully that's not going to continue.
Yeah, hopefully that clears up really soon. So, anyway, you came up with an interesting topic today. Usually you do. You always come up with something really interesting.
Well, thanks.
But you included a term in it that actually is very apropos. And I say that because you included the words, I believe, inner being in your title or description. I don't remember which. And I have come up with what I think is my new term for the inner being.
Yeah.
I've decided to call it the rest of me.
The rest of you. That's cool. So
there's the physical me, and then there's the rest of me. And I like that particular one for now anyway, and we'll see how long I stick with it. But I like that one for now because it reminds me that inner being part is part of me. I mean, it's not like it's a separate thing. It's just, it's the rest of who I am. So it's a way of maintaining that connection, so to speak, in my own mind. So I'm going to play with that for a while and see how it works. But I like it so far.
That's good.
Yeah.
The way I play with that is I'm thinking that it as it's who I really am, is my inner being or my higher source self, I call it. And that what I'm trying to do in this life is remember myself into that recognition that my higher source self is living in this place that's called the vortex, where all of my possibilities are already realized. And everything that I constantly want and dream and wish, and when I know what I don't want, I've put into this place. And my whole thing in life is simply to relax enough to let myself have it, let myself get up to speed with it. That's why the program today is about how do you keep up with that larger self? How do you keep up with that expanded self that has already allowed you to have the lover you want and the money you want and the job you want and the health you want and everything? It's already there and it's a done deal. How do you keep up with that?
There's a lot there, isn't there? Yeah,
there's a lot there.
Do you have like a preferred name that you use? I mean, you referred to a number of different names there to describe that inner being, but is there something you prefer?
I think I bounce around a lot. I mean, those are the ones I use: inner being or higher source self. I suppose I might come up with some other ones today when we're talking.
Well, we'll just make note of them.
Those are things that's the way I think of it a lot. When I'm writing or when I'm talking to a client, I think I call it your higher source self, your infinite self. I call it my infinite self a lot.
Okay.
Because I like that idea that it's a pretty vast thing. It's infinite's pretty vast, right?
Oh yeah. It goes on for quite some time.
And that's why I love how you keep up with it is that you just tune yourself to it more and more. But Abraham, I was reading this thing yesterday. They were saying, but you don't ever catch up with it, and they were, saying, really, you don't, that doesn't seem right. I'm never going to catch up with who I am. And they were saying, not really, because, the second you get in tune with, aspects of it that feel fantastic to you, you just launch more rockets of even more that you want, because it's our nature to constantly expand. It's the nature of the universe. It's just always expanding. So there's always then more contrast created as soon as you know what you want and you get in the wonderful feeling place of allowing yourself to have it, and you totally trust that you do have it and it's coming to you, and you start feeling all those good feelings and things start showing up, start manifesting in your life. Then you launch rockets for even more, and then you see the contrast of, oh, well, I don't yet quite have that. And so you have the greater longing for it, and you continue to pursue it. But I guess the point is, do you do all that from a place of ease, trust, belief, hope, and allowing, so that it becomes a joyride for you? It becomes more and more a really fun thing just to be alive, playing with the contrast.
Well, it's funny that you should refer to it as a joyride, because the metaphor, sort of the image that came to my head as you were describing that, was the physical us is the tail on our own kites. And we're constantly following that kite, wherever the kite is flying.
Oh, that's cool. The tail on our own kites.
We're the tails on our own kites, yeah.
Well, that sounds like a book there for you, Walt.
It does, yeah. That sounds like a title, right?
Yeah. The tail. How are we the tail on our own kite? And
be your own tail.
Tell the tale of your own kite.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. What was the tail for? I remember putting tails on kites. It seemed to stabilize it.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And in a
Kept
sense,
it.
that's what we're trying to learn. I mean, we're trying to learn how
Okay.
to stabilize our own lives, and not
Oh,
only
that's
stabilize
cool.
it,
Yeah.
but stabilize it in a way that's, to our benefit and it feels good and makes the trip worthwhile.
Yeah. God, I loved flying kites when I was a kid. Oh man. Southern California I guess it had these offshore winds because I was
Oh,
20
wow.
miles inland where I grew up, but you could get a thing of string that was, I mean, it when you wrapped it all up, it was like 8 inches around. It was so
Hmm.
huge, and it would let the kite go to where you could barely see it, and it would be so far to the east, of where you were standing, and the pull on it was just
Oh,
tremendous.
I'm sure.
It was huge pull on it. And eventually, you got it out far enough, it would break. And then the kite would start floating to the east. And, we would run, but we couldn't ever get as far. It was gone like at least a mile or two away
Right.
where it was probably going to finally come down. But it was so much fun. Oh my God. I haven't had that fun for so long.
That's nice though. You had those kinds of winds because you need that. You need that nice, steady gale kind of wind in order to really fly a
Yeah.
kite.
Never see a kite in Colorado ever. It's got these bursts of wind that come, and they don't even go sailing here on the reservoirs and stuff because a burst can knock your boat over so fast.
Really?
Yeah, it's like these microbursts happen. And I was talking to them at the local reservoir here, and I said, "Why aren't people out sailing catamarans and stuff?" And they said, "Because they just go over so fast, and you're just like trucking along, everything's cool, and then bam, this gust knocks you over."
Wow.
Anyway,
It's
I
pretty
don't know how
wild.
that relates to our topic, but
Well, actually, it's making me think about when Louise and I were still living in Virginia. We did make a trip out to the Outer Banks, which is the coast along North Carolina, and particularly to Kitty Hawk, where the Wright brothers did their first flight.
yeah,
And there were a lot of kite flyers there, and boy, oh boy, you could tell just by being on the grounds why the Wright brothers picked that spot because it's one continuous wind of somewhere around 30 to 40 miles an hour. So of course they wanted to, try to do their first flight flying directly into that wind because that's how you get the most lift. It was very obvious, but boy, lots of kite flyers that day. And I think that's the last time I saw anybody flying a kite. But I mean, some people, you know how it is. Some people get really into kites. They make these
yes,
really elaborate, kites. And some of these kites were fabulous. I mean, I even saw a box kite. I haven't seen a box kite in years, but somebody had a box kite. I mean, really cool.
Well, there's all these ones now that are controlled with these controls on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
And I guess, since we're on this topic, it's a very good analogy in my mind for getting into the vortex, which that's where your expanded self lives, and it's constantly expanding within the vortex, this reservoir of possibilities, this place that's where your source self always lives. And really for us, I think being in these bodies, what we're doing is we're learning to be at the controls in a sense of letting ourselves feel that flight, that part of us that is that larger infinite self, feeling it soar.
Yeah, it's really true.
And being able to play with it instead of thinking of it as inaccessible or the contrast just knocks us out because contrast overwhelms us. I think to be able to get into our vortex, we got to be able to play with contrast and see it, from that position of it's not a debilitating thing. It's an encouraging thing that there is contrast, that we couldn't, if there wasn't problems, we couldn't have solutions. If there wasn't questions, we couldn't have answers. And so there has to be that dichotomy, of that duality that actually it's a part of this whole play. So keeping up with our expanded self is getting really good at being able to play with the contrast as it comes up, because we're constantly going to be expanding. So contrast is going to constantly be coming up.
Plus, the other thing that occurs to me about kites as a metaphor, if we're the tails of our own kites, well, anytime you've watched a kite with a tail, the tail is also kind of flapping around. It's trying, in a sense, it is stabilizing the kite, but it itself kind of gets whipped around a little bit too. And that's
Yeah.
kind of descriptive of, guy being whipped around by life. That sometimes happens. So
Hmm.
even there, I mean, there's like an active metaphor playing out with that tail flapping around in the breeze, created by, or created that floats the kite and flies the kite. The kite is flying, and the tail's behind it, and we're on the tail, and can be a roller coaster sometimes, but it's a fun one.
That's
It's a fun ride, and that's really the point. We're out there enjoying the ride.
that's awesome. That I just was on Facebook yesterday, and somebody had posted a video called Shlomo,
Slow mo,
like
okay,
Shlomo. I think it's SCHOLMO,
okay.
and it's a 15-minute. And I posted it to my Facebook if you want to go look at it. But it's a 15-minute beautiful video about a doctor who, in his 60s, finally retired from being a doctor because he was losing his vision, and he wasn't able to recognize faces anymore, and he couldn't look at his X-rays and stuff anymore. I think he was a neurologist and a psychiatrist, but he realized that he had gotten to the point in his life where he was 10% spiritual and 90% into his wealth and all that, producing wealth. And he had so much wealth that, he no longer knew what to do with it or anything. But he saw that he was what he called himself as what he terms a very common thing in America, which he calls an asshole.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he said that's what he had become. And
okay.
So anyway,
it's nice to know there's a scientific term for that.
yeah. And well, he's a doctor. He knows the terms.
Well, of course, yes,
and
right.
He's a psychiatrist, Can't imagine what it was like being his patient. But
yeah, right. Well, we won't even go there.
But anyway, so what he had done is he basically downsized everything into a small, I think, condo on the beach in San Diego, and what he does all day long is he roller skates, he rollerblades, and he rollerblades sometimes all night long, and he is, everyone knows him all up and down the beach, where he rollerblades, as Shlomo, and because what he does is he goes into this back and forth motion like you do when you roller skate, and he reaches a point of ecstasy. Then he puts one leg out in the back and he balances on one leg, and he just goes for a really long way on one leg, with one leg sticking straight out in the back. And he talks in the video about how he shows pictures of surfers, and they go this back and forth motion, and he shows skateboarders doing this back and forth motion like the tail of the kite. And he said there's an ecstasy to beings when they go into this back and forth motion, and especially human beings love this lateral movement like that, like in skiing, water skiing, snow skiing, skateboarding, surfing, and Shlomo on his rollerblades all has that motion that the tail of the kite has. And when you were saying that, all of a sudden that came back into my head of watching this incredible video. And the whole video was about us letting ourselves have freedom, us letting ourselves really go to the rhythm of life. And it made me think there's really something to this oscillating, the roller coaster, the up and down, the being in flow with the contrast, where, when you're surfing or when you're skiing and doing these things, you are actually it's a dangerous position in a way, but you can get into such a flow that you're literally riding the wave,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe it's a great analogy for when you write your book, you can talk about all this, but for being in that flow.
I love how you got me writing a book already. I hadn't even planned to write this one. You got me writing it.
I think it would be a great book. Yeah. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting to think about contrast, because it's we come here into this realm to play with finessing this motion. When I dance a lot, and when I dance, I totally get into that of just weaving in and out and all over the dance floor and moving my body up and down. And it's all the different sideways movements. And when you're into the rhythm of an amazing Motown piece or an amazing reggae piece, you're just moving to all that different instruments that are playing, that are calling you to go this way and that way and this way and that way. But it's the same thing, it's like, what is it about us as human beings? We love to play with contrast, we do it in rhythm. And maybe if we could just look at our ups and downs in life as more and more, it's a play. It's a game, it's an art to play with this stuff rather than take it all so seriously and turn it into a drama that then becomes stifling. Then it starts to just be like music that's, I don't know, really regimented, and it could be a flow.
It should be.
I'm going off on a tangent here, but maybe it's the tangent of how we stay up with our expanding self. Maybe that's how we keep up with it, knowing that we'll never quite arrive at any particular. I mean, when you're surfing or anything, you arrive at the bottom of the hill when you're skiing. When you're skateboarding, you eventually get to some place you're going to, but it's the ride you have getting there that makes it so awesome.
True. Yeah. And in fact, when we're looking at this from the perspective of an adventure, then the contrast is fun. It's wonderful. It's exciting. What trips us up is when we look at the contrast and we're looking at the part of it we don't like, and we're spending our time on that, and we're living there. We're constantly focused on it, and our attention is constantly drawn back to it. Then we're not having a good time anymore. It's not that there's anything wrong with the contrast. The contrast is fine. The contrast is how we expand the universe. The contrast is how we make our lives interesting. The difficulty isn't the contrast. The difficulty is we're focusing on the part of the contrast we don't want to focus on, and yet we do it anyway.
Yeah, and yet the negative emotion, here's a thing from Abraham. They say the negative emotion, you want to be sensitive to it so you can benefit from the guidance it's giving you. That's so true. Negative emotion is telling you two things. It's telling you, first, you're not up to speed with what's in your vortex, but it's telling you something else really, really important that we so want you to hear. It's telling you that you have expanded the bigger part of you beyond where your practice going. Don't you like knowing that? So, this infinite part of us we were talking about when we began the podcast, that you've expanded that bigger part of you beyond where your practice being. And then they say, I have expanded beyond what I have learned to allow. Well, you know what that means? If you've expanded beyond what you have learned to allow, that means there are some good times coming to you. Because the deliciousness of life, the true essence of life, the part of life that you call exhilaration or adventure, the part of life you call passion, the part of life that you climb mountains for, or that you get into new relationships for, the part of life that you were born for, the part of life that you love most of all, is that moving in the direction of the further expansion. And we really want you to hear us when we say moving in the direction of it, because moving in the direction of it is all that you're ever going to do, because you're never going to catch it. And when I used to surf, I remembered it's that moving on that wave, that oscillating back and forth and up and down on that wave, that is so fun that you just go back out again and again and again. I remember getting in the water at 10 in the morning and getting out at 5 in the evening because it is so fun to ride waves. Maybe I get out to have a hamburger in the middle of the day.
Yeah, well, I would hope. Yeah,
and lay on the beach for a few minutes. But we just wanted to be on those waves constantly, and maybe that's really the analogy for our life is that we accept the negative emotion as it's telling us how to oscillate, how to keep moving in the direction that we want to go.
Well, there's also another metaphor that not only came to my mind, it came to my lap just now. My cat, as you were talking there, and she does this almost every morning with the podcast, usually about the same time. But she's like most cats. She's a constant ball of wants. She wants this. She wants to go in. She wants to go out. She wants food. She wants water. She wants to play. She wants to be petted. It's ongoing, right? And you almost never see a cat just kind of crawl into the corner and sulk because nothing's happening. That's just not what they do. They're constantly on the move, looking for whatever stimulus they can find, and try to interact with that stimulus. So, like with me here and her jumping in my lap, first she comes up, she rubs up at my hand's dangling down next to my chair. So she rubs up against my hand, and she makes sure that my hand is rubbing against her whole body. And so I'm petting her, and she's looking at me, and she's walking around like, "Come on, let's do something." And I'm not moving anywhere. So now she jumps up on the lap, and she's kneading at my lap, and, "Come on, pet me, purr, 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 purr." It's endless. It's just continuous.
Yeah, they know how to go after satisfaction.
They sure do. Yeah. Now, they don't spend a whole lot of time on the negative. They notice it. Okay, I don't feel good because I haven't been petted. Time to get petted. But that's the end of it. They're done with that now. Now it's like, okay, I'm being petted. Purr, 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 purr. They don't spend a lot of time saying, "Oh, geez, why don't I ever get petted? I don't seem to have, nobody likes me anymore. Why can't I make friends? Where's my relationship? Why don't I have another cat that I'm hanging?" They just never do that.
Yeah. And for us, it's just when we get into that place where suddenly we're a little bit beyond our doubt and worry, we're a little bit beyond our fear and our feeling depressed or sad or hopeless. When we get beyond that, it only takes a little bit of being uplifted, and then we're willing often to roll with the feeling of upliftment. We're no longer stuck. I was on this mastermind call yesterday with this group of people I'm working with to create my group coaching program, and they're all creating a group coaching program for themselves in their own coaching modality that they're into. And I was noticing that the conversation was kind of dragging, and there wasn't a lot of inspiration, and yet when somebody spoke and it reached the point of inspiration because that person was uplifted, that person was excited about what they're doing, suddenly I watched, because on Zoom you can look at, Zoom is this way of having live conferences with people online.
Yep.
And so there's a picture of each person up there.
Yeah.
And
we know it well. We use it for the podcast, so we're familiar with it.
Okay. And there's 5 of us up there, and when you saw the change in each of those pictures of those 5 people from when the conversation was dragging to when somebody got uplifted and it infected everybody else, and everybody was smiling and their faces started to fill with blood, with that really glowing look, and
sure.
The smiles grow really big and they change position in their chair, and all of a sudden everybody's saying really positive, exciting things about what's happening.
Nice.
And that's that thing, that spark that we're always looking for, that's what makes a good ride on a wave, and right, that's what keeps the kite in the right position. When that oscillation it just starts to dance, it starts to feel really good.
And by the way, I was telling about what was going on with my cat. Now she got jumped up after all that, and she was getting her pets, and she was purring, she was looking at me and so forth, and I'm talking as I'm purring, and then all of a sudden she jumped down and ran out of the room.
Oh,
because another agenda. Been there, done that. Time to go on to the next thing. There's no waiting around. It's like, well, I'm just going to milk this until it's done. No, time to get on to the next thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been with cats that'll milk it for as long, for endless. It seems like.
Oh yeah, the other cat. We got into the habit of drying him off with an old towel when he came in from the rain, because he didn't really care a whole lot, but Louise cared more, so she'd get the towel out, and he loves that towel. I mean, he doesn't have to be wet. He'll make himself wet just so he can get the towel, and he'll lie down on the ground and we'll rub the towel on it. And he's just in ecstasy. You can tell. Oh yeah, keep it going. Come on. Don't stop. Just endless, excitement. And then all of a sudden, he jumps up and goes off and eats.
Uh-huh.
Because he's had enough. He's done.
Yeah, yeah. But they're always moving to the next expansion in their vortex.
Exactly.
It's like, where's the expansion now? Oh, it's in, I'm feeling an impulse to go eat. So then I'm going to go follow that impulse. They finish eating and they say, I'm going to go back and see Walt.
Yes.
That was
Where's the towel?
yeah, right. I'm going to go to the door and I'm going to go, let me out. I got something out there that's calling me.
Oh, yeah, all day long. Actually, that's one of the hardest parts during the podcast because the office where I do this is the second bedroom for us, and it's right next to the front door. So inevitably during the podcast, I'm hearing scratch, 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 and I'm turning off the microphone so it doesn't go over the air, and I'm letting them out. It's an endless dance between doing the podcast with you guys and dealing with the cats.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty good that you can do it.
I've gotten good at it. Mute is a wonderful thing. That's all I can say.
Right. Unless you have to talk at that moment.
Yeah, well, that's the tricky part. I mean, you have to kind of balance it, but it's like anything else. You get used to it.
Yeah, you get good at it.
But riding that tail of that kite, I mean, I love the metaphor. The more we talk about it, the more I love it. It really does describe what living life is about in the most positive way possible. Because it's not like the kite doesn't have its twists and turns. It does. It isn't like the tail doesn't kind of give you a wild ride sometimes. It does. It isn't like you couldn't even fall off the tail. You could. It's possible. But nevertheless, that's where all the living is done.
Mm-hmm. And the kite itself is like your expanded self, your infinite self that's constantly rising higher. You're letting it go out more and more and more, but the tail is constantly working to keep it stabilized. And I don't know. It's like you're going to have to play with this when you write your book. There must be a lot of ways you could describe this.
It does have a number of different possible double meanings for a title too. So we'll have to play with that one. But yeah,
yeah.
Be your own tail. No, you can't do that one. No, wait a
minute. Yeah, here's this thing that Abraham is saying. Do you understand that the vibrational frequency of a solution is different from the frequency of the problem? But they are tied together in this vibrational wave. In other words, they are equal parts of the same concept, the problem and the solution. So it's why humans talk about duality. And the duality conversation takes you off on all kinds of goose chases, but it's nice to know that you are constantly expanding, that everything that you feel, no matter what, is about one thing and one thing only. It's about your personal, in this moment of the feeling vibrational relationship with that expanded version.
That was a really long, kind of drawn out, run-on sentence. But reread that one portion, the one portion that was about the duality. What did they say about the duality again? Because I kind of missed it.
Oh, it said, they're just saying how, the frequency of the solution and the frequency of the problem are tied together in a vibrational wave. They are equal parts of the same concept, and it's why humans talk about duality. They talk about the
because
dark
of
and the light,
the solution
and the good and the bad.
I got
it.
Okay.
Because they're tied together, and they said that conversation in the spiritual community can go off on all kinds of what they're calling wild goose chases.
Oh yeah, well that's why I asked what they were saying, because that part I recognize real well.
Yeah, but they said that the two being tied together of a problem and a solution means that you are constantly expanding because of that duality. But everything you feel, no matter what, is about one thing only, and it's about your vibrational relationship with the expanded version. So the only thing that you're ever going through all day long is your vibrational relationship with the expanded version of you, because we're an infinite being, and we actually dwell in this infinite place, and everything is answered for us constantly. We always are being given everything that we want, and it's our relationship with accepting that and allowing that and feeling good about it, as opposed to stressing out about where is it, I want it. It's like when we trust and know that it's there for us, we do have the relationship we want. We do have the money we want, but we've got to relax and play with it and let it into our lives in a lighthearted way. It's not going to come to us, except we recognize that if we're feeling a negative emotion about it, it's telling us that Source sees our solution in a different way than we're stressing out about.
Sure. Now, I got to ask you, because usually when you come up with these topics, it's tied to something going on in your life. Is that the case here too? You came up with this because it's something you're working on, or something that you've noticed in others, or something that you see regularly, or I mean, does it have a tie going on there?
Yes, because I'm creating this group coaching thing.
Coaching thing. Oh, okay. All right.
And so as I'm creating my modules, and the whole idea of creating it, I was talking about this on the mastermind call yesterday with these four other people, was that I want my creation to be on the leading edge of my expanded self. And I want, every time I get on a call with my coaching group, say it's 10 or 12 people, I want us to go as a group to the expanded version of who we are, so that each person, when they get to share, or as we're listening to each other share, we elevate the conversation to that wonderful energy that happens like on this podcast. That's what we do on the podcast, right? We talk with each other in the hopes of, this is how I do it, in the hopes of elevating this conversation to the level of inspiration, right?
Oh, well, I don't think we even have to hope. I mean, it just happens. Regardless of whether we hope, it just takes off.
And so that's being on the expanded version. And, we do that by dancing with the topic. And so the reason I picked this today was because I realized that in creating this thing, I want all my modules and everything about it to be reflective of being in that place of inspiration and spontaneity where I'm always talking about something that is the leading edge of my own creative possibilities, and then of everybody who's on the call with me. So it becomes like a creative crucible. I once said that what I wanted more than anything at this time in my life was to have a job that let me have a play shop, instead of a workshop, a play shop where people come into the play shop with me and we create together. We create something that for each one of us is a really wonderful expression of the leading edge of who we are as infinite beings.
Sounds
and
fun.
So, yeah.
I mean, even just name a play shop, that sounds good. Let's go play. Let's go play in the play shop.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think work more and more, I want to see it as play, rather than I need to, pay a big price to get what I want, and that's called work. I mean, sometimes work just means wonderful use of our bodies and minds and intellects. I mean, work can have a great positive connotation too.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it's been so much in our culture, it's been equated with work means stressing out and struggling and trying really hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, drudgery, being super diligent. And I noticed that so many of these online programs that I'm a part of, so many people are in that place. They even a lot of people coach, and their workshops are about things like time management.
Oh, yeah.
How do you motivate yourself to do something when you don't want to?
The moment you're asking that question is the moment that you're on the wrong track.
Yeah. So bringing that levity into everything is sort of my mission. It's because I've been so affected by trying so hard in my life and thinking that things are so difficult, or that, it's hard, thinking life is hard and life takes paying this big price in order to get anything that you want. And I'm trying to just evolve myself out of that into this place of, hey, it's already created in my vortex. Everything I want is already there. I just want to lighten up and let it in. I want to surf on the crest of the wave of my life. I want to be a downhill skier in my life. I want to be a skateboarder, I don't want to stress out. I want to go fly a kite,
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I had a direct experience with that last night. We had Mike McEwen, who is one of the contributors to the book, calling in on Monday, if you remember, and had a great time talking with him. Well, he called me again last night after the podcast that I did with Wendy, and we're talking about, we had gone out with, he and his wife Anne-Marie and Louise and I went out for dinner the night before, so we were talking about that and how much fun we'd had. And then he was telling me how big of a difference the book has made in his life. He actually feels like he's more of an expert, a better person, because he's now an author, a co-author of a book, and his picture. He even had a copy of the book. He's pointing at the back page of the the back cover where all the photos are. And I'm on the book. This is he's giving him credibility and so forth. And he's just waxing poetic about it. Well, he then calls me last night and says, we really need to do more. Like, we should have you down here to like do some more do another book signing, or maybe we can get into the Wesleyan bookstore, because they live in Middletown, Connecticut. The What and What Theater that Anne Marie is the executive director of is in downtown Middletown, and they're fairly well connected down there. And Wesleyan University is in Middletown. So anyway, he was suggesting, well, we could also get into the Wesleyan bookstore. I said, yeah, that sounds like fun. And then he says, and there's also the possibility if you want to, if you might think you might be interested, maybe we could try to get onto Wesleyan radio. I said, sure, yeah, sounds fun to me. Let's do it. I'm all about the fun. And it was funny because, we're talking and talking, and he's getting really excited. And in one sense, he's kind of like trying to talk me into it. And there's no talking me into it because I'm saying, I love it. Let's do it. Sign me up. Let's go. But we're also getting really enthusiastic about it. There was nothing drudge about it. There was nothing work about it. It was just, hey, let's have some fun. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's live.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about your podcast. And, this whole thing is so good for me because it's always an uplifting thing, and it's always about that, your daily dose of happy.
That's right.
It really is. It really is that for me. I got this thing that came in as an email and a phone call from this radio station out of Phoenix, Arizona, that's an internet radio called Voice America. And they sent me this very formal email and phone call that from this guy who sounded really, like he's the real deal. And, he's got a great radio voice, and he's left me a voicemail and this email, and it said, we've been checking you out on your podcast, and we want to have you have your own radio show with us. And it was so flattering to me. Like, I thought, wow, they must really understand what I'm all about,
Yeah.
And wow, I've got a great message, and all of a sudden my mind just went into this. I could feel it in my whole being. This sort of fantasy of, I maybe my voice is going to be heard all over the place, and I have a message. Gosh, I have a message that's really vital and really real. And it was this amazing feeling of exactly what our topic's about today, which is probably another reason why I picked this topic. Was all of a sudden I feel like it was thrusting me into my expanded self that is light years ahead of where I'm at now, saying you could become successful overnight. And that's one thing Abraham was saying. This stuff is in your vortex. You might think it's years away for you to have your fortune or your ideal lover or the health that you want. They said, but it is actually available right now. It's just that, can you let it in? And I was thinking, all of a sudden my mind is going, will I be able to keep up with this? I'll be all over the world on the radio, and I'll be all these people. And because he said in his email, do you think you can keep up with that amount of clients coming to you that our show is going to give you? And so I looked into the whole thing. As it turns out, that it's something where that's actually a vanity radio station where they want you to pay about $500 per show in order to be on the air. Right. And I thought, oh, well, wait a minute. Then I read online all these different reviews of it, and everybody was saying, I don't think so. I'm not going to give somebody $500 per show so that, when I don't even know what kind of listenership they have. So I passed on that. But it was so cool because it immediately made me realize that I could think of my expansion and the things I want in my life. I could think of them in a much bigger way.
That's an interesting path to go on, isn't it? To just explore that and kind of feel it. And because I've done the same thing. And in fact, after my conversation with Mike yesterday, I was thinking, this is just Wesleyan Radio. It just has a small broadcast area compared to the rest of the country. But that's a stepping stone. I mean, what if we start with Wesleyan Radio? What if he gets me on there and I'm doing a show with somebody or whatever, and it starts to get wider audience and more people sent to the podcast so that they're listening to the podcast, and it continues to grow that, and maybe a larger radio station finds us, right? And just becomes stepping stones after that. So, we're all going into doing the podcast as part of a broadcast on a radio station or maybe a series of radio stations at the same time, and it just keeps building. I was playing that. I was playing that out in my mind, and it was fun, and it's still fun. As I'm describing it right now, my excitement level just builds as I'm talking about it. That sounds so cool.
It really made me realize that I need to think just like that, instead of looking at what is so much. And I wonder sometimes why are things taking a while? Why are things slow at all for me? And then here Abraham is saying that's why they're slow, because you're looking at what is too much,
right?
And you're not looking at what could be, because you can't taste it and touch it and hear it and see it and feel it. But really, that's where you got to slowly get practiced in imagining what really is possible, because that's what brings it. When you get excited about that feeling, when that glow comes alive inside you and you're going, yeah, things are possible. Things are possible. Things are possible.
Isn't it crazy when we're focused on what is? I mean, you mentioned that, how you can get overly focused on what is. So we're focused on what is. Okay, so I'm looking at what is, and I'm not doing a radio show yet. So I look at what is, and I'm still not doing a radio show. And I keep looking at what is, and I'm still not doing a radio show. I have my podcast, but the radio show hasn't materialized yet. But I keep looking at that what is, and the radio show still doesn't show up. I mean, how often do we do that? We do that not just with radio shows, but with all kinds of things that we're looking for in our lives. We're constantly
with our bank accounts.
We're keeping score of the thing that isn't changing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't change our attention over to where we want it to be. We just say, well, if I keep focusing on what isn't changing long enough, I'll bet you it's going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I keep talking about it and I repeat it, the same bad aspects of it that have bummed me out for the last 10 years.
And I'll tell all my friends, and I'll tell my mom and my dad, and I'll tell my brother and my sister. I'll keep telling everybody, and if I do that often enough, it'll change.
Right. That's why I quit naming the symptoms that I have in my body as, that's a sinus symptoms, or that's a candida symptom, or that's a overly tight psoas on my right side that causes this. It's like, keep describing it over and over again, and it'll stay there. But if I think of it as, well, that's a sensation I'm having, but that's a malleable sensation. That can be changed. That could be, I could let go of that. I mean, I laid in my bed at 4:00 the other morning. I got woken up and I didn't know what was going on, and I was feeling these different symptoms, and I started to move them in my body, like I was having all this pain in my stomach, and I just put my hands on my stomach, and I just kept feeling the fact that this is just something that's here right now. Why is it here? And I felt with my hands into letting it go. You know how in Reiki they project that energy of healing into something through their hands.
Right.
And so I did that, and I completely got rid of all the pain, and I watched it completely dissipate. And then I watched myself change other things in my head. And once I changed them all, then I just fell sound asleep again. And it was almost like I was woken up to have a healing session with myself.
So you basically just illustrated in a beautiful way how to get unstuck from focusing on what is over and over and over again. Because I mean, the way you made it sounded like it's easy to. You don't have to focus on what is. You just keep focusing on what you want it to be and what that would feel like and so forth. You made it sound easy.
Yeah, watch what it's doing too. I mean, sometimes just observing it you realize it isn't locked in. This is something that's malleable. That's the cool thing I love about life. It is there's nothing is truly locked in, set in stone. Everything is constantly changing. And then if you take it back to the cosmic perspective of the fact, that like we are actually creating this reality, that we're actually every second it's being generated somehow by thought. Everything is generated from thought, and thought is always malleable. Then you say, well, then we just haven't learned to be good enough imaginers yet. We haven't made ourselves. I mean, I love that thing that somebody said not too long ago, that we are more imaginal beings than anything else.
Yeah.
That's what we are. We're thinking beings. And that these people that do out-of-body travel, when they go to these other dimensions, when they travel out of their body, they say, in the other dimensions, you immediately realize everything is created from thought. And the deeper you go into those dimensions, the quicker thought brings things about, so the second you think about a huge open meadow, the meadow is just there, and you're there in it. It's the hologram on the Starship Enterprise for those who have watched Star Trek.
Welcome to the holodeck here on LOA today.
The holodeck, right?
Yeah.
So everything is the holodeck, and are we able to just let ourselves play with the holodeck in our play shop? Just like let's create, let's see what we can imagine into being, and that's where I'm going to make my group coaching groups about using our energy to heal, because Lynn McTaggart, this wonderful journalist who's written all these books like the Intention Experiment, and now she's written a book called the Power of Eight, and it's about how in doing her programs all over the world, she makes these groups of 8 to 10 to 12 people that then put a person in the center who's got a problem, that they want to have worked on. They've got some kind of condition in their body or something going on with them, and everybody puts a hand on that person, and then everybody puts their other hand on another person in the group, in the circle, and they send healing energy to that person. But she's also using whole groups of hundreds of people to send healing energy to different things that need healing, and she's documenting it by doing double-blind studies with quantum physicists and proving that she's creating healings through intention, through
nice.
People projecting their energy. And so I'm going to have that be part of my group coaching thing where we do healings together, because we are all creators.
Well, we are creators. And I love the little soliloquy you did there on imagination, because I remember when I was first struggling with trying to do this LOA thing, that my big objection was, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to imagine what I want. Every time I try, it doesn't work. I can't seem to get there. I can't seem to visualize. I can't seem to make a picture of it. I don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. Which is ironic, because as it turns out, every one of us is incredibly skilled at imagining. We're incredibly skilled at creating. I mean, we do it all the time. It's just that we don't give ourselves recognition for it. But, I mean, we do it by default beautifully. Constantly,
Yeah.
And yet
we're imagining what is, right?
well, we imagine what is, but more than that, even when we're imagining what is, if we're really honest with ourselves, we're playing with it. It's not just here's what is, falls on the floor flat. That's not the way we interact with stuff in our minds. In our minds, it's like, oh, there goes Billy again, jumping off. He's going to hurt himself. I can just see it now. He's going to hurt himself. He's going to break his leg. They're going to have to take him to the hospital. That's imagining.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not the kind of imagining you really want to do. We wouldn't recommend that kind, but it's still imagining. It's creating.
Yeah.
So early on, I really wasn't giving myself enough credit for all the different ways I imagined. My problem was that I couldn't imagine. My problem was I was imagining the wrong stuff.
That's right. I mean, you get a bill in the mail, and you feel, you open it up and go, oh, yeah, they're still asking me for that $1,000 for that car repair, and that's still in dispute, and yep. I don't know if I'm going to get nailed for this thing, and I'm going to having to pay this, and oh my God, or something like that, But we're always telling ourselves,
and all it was a bill. There's nothing else. It was just a bill with a number on it. Then none of that story was in the bill.
Yeah. And some people have even successfully claimed that what they do when they get their bills is they add several zeros on the end of it, and they imagine that's the amount of money that they're going to get into their life.
So turn it around. That's an interesting way to use imagination.
Different games, that we can play with ourselves if we believe things are truly malleable and that everything is actually already taken care of in our vortex. The thing that we want is actually there for us. We just need to find out how to open the doors to let it in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this whole thing is an incredible game, isn't it? I mean,
it really is. Yeah. and the moment that we recognize that it's a game is the same moment that we recognize that we don't have to play the game just one way. Yeah, we've been playing the game one way all along, and it's been the negative way. It's been focusing on all the things that are going to go wrong and so forth. But we don't have to play the game that way. There is no box top for the rules for this game that says you must always choose the negative route. It's not part of the rules of the game. So you get to pick what route you're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is powerful. That's important. And I think that's why we do the Daily Dose of Happy. I think that's why I wanted to make that the title of, or the subtitle or whatever of the show, because I wanted the reminder. Yeah, I wanted to bring other people a Daily Dose of Happy. Sure, that was a big part of it. But it was also for myself. I wanted to remind myself every day that I can dose myself with happiness just by whatever I decide to think about and what I decide to focus on, what I decide to talk about with others. I can change the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And we do every day. We're talking about the same thing every day, Tom. We talk about the law of attraction. And every day the topic is different.
Yeah.
How
and there's
can that
different
be?
ways to approach it.
There
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
And there's more energy. You know, that's what I love about it, is that everything is constantly expanding. So I've been on this podcast since, December 4th, and and I look at it, it's just this constantly expanding dream, that we come together and create every Monday and Friday morning. And,
Right.
and it's like, I see the whole thing with me is, can I get better and better at dreaming the dream I want to see as reality?
Mm-hmm.
The Ashwar Indians, I've talked about this before, in the Amazonian rainforest in Ecuador, they sent images of their own faces into the heads of people living up in North America, and eventually got people to fly down there in these, fly down to Ecuador, take this tiny plane, land in the middle of the rainforest on this tiny little runway at some Ashwar village, and talk to them. And what they talked to these people that came down there was, you people in the north are dreaming a dream that's killing the earth. You've got to dream a different dream. And they're a dream culture, and they determine their entire day by getting up at 4 a.m, and the elders interpret the dreams of various people in the village. And then they determine what they're going to do that day based on what the dreams were. And it's really like understanding that this is all a big dream, and we are dreaming it constantly. If we could understand to get better at dreaming what we want to have happen, we could have the lives we want,
And interestingly enough, we're already good at it.
Mm-hmm.
We're already good at doing the dreaming. The only thing that we have to develop the skill on more is dreaming the dream we want to dream, instead of dreaming the dream we don't want to dream. But we demonstrate every day that we're good at dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just that we turned our dreams into nightmares. So
yeah, it's that we're so focused on what is, because we can see it and touch, taste it and feel it and hear it, and all that. Our senses are so powerfully influencing us into what is, that we don't realize that the imagination is our sixth sense, this sense of what our feelings are telling us. So when we're in a place of feeling good, we are headed then in the direction of what's in our vortex. Then we're letting our vortex open up before us, and everything that we've imagined into our vortex can come into our lives little bit by little bit. We start to see it show up, instead of the thing, by being focused on what is and just repeating over and over again the same sad story, or the same angry story, or the same fear-based story. We can begin to let in this dream story of what could be, because we have already created that dream. We're just not used to letting it in, because we're so focused on what our senses are perceiving. But our emotions are telling us, when we're feeling not so good, that's telling us, don't go in that direction. Don't go in that direction.
Doctor, my arm hurts whenever I do this. Well, don't do that. So we just got a few seconds left, about a minute left before the music comes on. Remind people, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. It doesn't take more than a minute. Just go to the homepage, loatoday.net. The instructions are right there. And then after you're done, all of our podcast episodes come right to your smartphone, and you can listen to them anytime you want to. And plus, it also has a bunch of social media buttons, so you can share with your friends that, hey, I just subscribed to loatoday.net, and I recommend that you do so too. And Tom, for somebody who wants more personal attention, how do they do that?
Well, I offer anyone who would like it a free coaching session with me, so you can decide if you want to do coaching and if I would be a good person to work with. And you can go to my website, which is youarejoy, youarejoy.com. And there's a way on the website there. It says a free coaching session you can sign up for. And that's what I do.
Sounds great. Tom, it's been a pleasure, and have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you on Monday.
Great, Walt. Thank you.
And we'll see
Bye.
you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.